Olá, boa tarde. Oh, come on, everybody stay. This is going to be fun. Come sit down, it will be fun. Tudo bem? Muito bom. Okay. So my name is Neil Redding, and I'm a near futurist. And we're here to explore orchestrating reality, like looking at how AI and spatial computing are driving the near future of creativity. And that's a lot, but I want to start by really aligning with all of you on what it feels like in this moment to be humans doing creative work. Now, we're a couple years into this Gen AI honeymoon, and we continue to find its contribution to creative work just amazing, beautiful, irresistible, right? And like enormous waves, there's a lot of legitimate worry that it will destroy jobs and maybe even destroy humanity after that, right? Because AI continues to advance at this exponential rate. Some people have even been saying hyper-exponential rate. So like the legendary 100-foot wave, 33-meter wave, right? We're really concerned about how to work with it. We're thrilled and terrified at the same time. And also annoyed, right? I mean, we really want AI to do the boring stuff, like do the dishes and the laundry and not stay away from our creative work, right? Well, a couple decades ago, the reality was there was no way to surf waves like this. But then surfers invented new methods, right, of being towed onto the wave by a jet ski. And they invented new surfboards that were much more stable, that allowed them to surf really big waves. And so now, 70, 80, 90, even 100-foot waves are no problem. I mean, not no problem, but possible, right? So how do we surf this 100-foot wave of AI without being pulled under by it? And we do need new approaches and new equipment, so to speak. But I think the most important thing we need is a new mindset. And that's what we're going to explore tonight. So the future is now arriving just faster than ever, right? I hear this all the time. I imagine you do. You maybe even say it. The future is just arriving so fast. Well, I focus on the near future because these new possibilities are just emerging so quickly now that traditional foresight and futurism are no longer enough. And as a near futurist, my focus is on what's emerging as possible today that can be put to immediate and practical use to generate value for brands, for businesses, for organizations, for you and me. And we can think of what's possible as new technology, new applications, new ways of working and communicating and getting things done, right? And what's practical is the existing context of our actual businesses, strategies, priorities, goals, budgets. And so near futurism is connecting the possible with the practical, because it's where these two overlap that the real magic happens, that brand and business model innovation can happen. And this is a constant, ongoing practice because new possibilities are emerging every week. Now, AI is the set of possibilities that are really on all of our minds today, right? And AI has existed for over 60 years, amazingly, and it's been practical for at least 20 years. And while there have been many approaches to AI, pattern matching using machine learning is what's really driven its development and success, especially commercial success, over the years. And we humans love patterns. Our behavior follows patterns. We tend to like things that are like each other, right? With movies and music and products and so on. So recommendation engines have been very commercially successful. And of course, pattern matching is really useful for forecasting as well. And yet, until recently, AI has really remained behind the scenes, kind of just in the machine, right? It just felt like better computing. Computing has been getting better. But when early mass market voice UI showed up, like Siri and Alexa, there was a lot of excitement. This is a while ago, right? Over 10 years ago. I was particularly inspired by the idea that I could have a conversation with an AI throughout the day. But of course, it turned out that natural language processing, while it was amazing for command recognition when it worked, it just was nowhere near understanding, and so conversation just was not possible. And so once again, we're just back to computers being computers. But things changed a lot, right, about 2 years ago when ChatGPT showed up. It started to feel like it could understand our conversation a bit, understand our communication. And yet the past 2 years of AI has really just been focused on prompt-driven content generation, right? This is what we've been doing, issuing prompts to AIs to produce results. And prompting AIs can be super entertaining and useful. Here's some really basic examples, right? I recently spoke at an executive summit in Bahia. That was my first trip to Brazil, went straight to Bahia. And I was daydreaming of going there. I heard it was very beautiful, but I said, ChatGPT, like, can you help me, project myself into, like, daydream a little bit about Bahia? So I asked ChatGPT to tell me a poem about Trancoso in Bahia. And I got this poem right away. It's Trancoso Dreaming. In Trancoso, where the ocean sighs and whispers to the moonlit skies, the cobblestones, they softly gleam in the heart of Bahia, where we dream. And I was moved, It's like, it's beautiful. And I needed something more. Like, what does it look like in Bahia? So I prompted Midjourney with, what's a gathering of 200 business leaders in Trancoso and a resort look like? And it actually got it pretty close. Not exactly, but the vibe was there. And I was wondering what we'd talk about when we got there. So I prompted GPT-4o with a visual diagram of the topics that a summit of business leaders would discuss in August 2024. I will say this diagram is much better than with previous models, right? I don't know how many of you have tried to get this sort of thing out of an AI model for a while, but the text isn't perfect, but it's getting really good. But I didn't know how to voice it over, so I asked ChatGPT to have my avatar give me an example of how to voice it over.
This diagram highlights key topics for today's business leaders: AI and automation, sustainability, digital transformation, leadership evolution, global trends, innovation, customer experience, and ethics, crucial for navigating the future of business.
Yeah, thanks, Neil's avatar. That was actually not anything I said, but avatars are getting really good. I don't know if you've seen these. This is HeyGen's latest version. But of course, AI can create much more sophisticated content, as I imagine many of you are creating. Not just essays and articles and reports, but also music and video and even 3D models, as we'll see in a minute, and podcasts, right, and lots of other things. But beyond prompt-driven content generation, it's really starting to feel like AI is a thought partner, right? Like more like a co-creator. And how many of you have experienced this kind of interaction with AIs where you're able to move faster and actually think of more ideas and explore more ideas faster thanks to AI, right? Yeah, I've been doing this almost all day, every day, and it's truly transformative. So AI is really starting to feel less like a tool and more like something else, right? Not quite a human, but something different. I've grown up as a software engineer and studied computer science and philosophy, and I have to say that in my 30 years of technology work, large language models like ChatGPT are the first time I've just not been able to get my head around what is going on inside the machine. And LLMs are the first technology that actually work better when we interact with them like we would interact with a human, right? If you don't get the kind of answer that you want first, you can say, pretend you are this kind of person with this set of characteristics or these motivations or these skills, right? And then you get a better answer, which is really different and profound. And all of this AI is built on neural network technology. And it's really fascinating that neural networks are what has led to this inflection point of technology becoming more human. You know, when I was a kid, my dad loved to say to me sarcastically when I was struggling with something, "When all else fails, Neil, read the instructions." And I feel like nature has given us the instructions in the form of neural networks, which are structurally very similar to mycelium, you know, the branching root structure that is the essence of soil-based fungi that connects trees and plants and mushrooms and other organisms in the forest floor. And also, this structure turns out to be part of deep space, how deep space is structured, and many other patterns of nature. So neural networks are a kind of biomimicry. And it's got me thinking, now, what if neural networks are a gift from technology to humanity? So we can definitely say AI is a catalyst. It's causing rapid change to the ways we create and to the near future of work. And yet, business and products and customers and the whole world are still very physical. Right, so for AI to effectively participate in our creative work, it really needs to understand the physical world so it can interact with it. And this is exactly what spatial computing does, mediates spatial or physical reality and digital reality. So computers can interact with the world and with us in natural ways. Now, from a human perspective, we can think of spatial computing as enabling three main things. The first is the experience of being in a place, what's often called immersion. And these next examples are from Apple's Vision Pro headset. Now, there's a feature called environments, which really fulfills on being in a place. And they're so high resolution that very few cameras can capture them, although some colleagues are using AI to solve for this already. And spatial videos are designed to let you be in a place at a specific moment in time, you know, kind of reliving that moment of your life. And Apple's personas, you know, their name for avatars, really also give you the experience of being in a place, especially when you're there with other people's personas, right? So that's a bit about what we mean by being in a place. The second thing spatial computing makes possible is digital content and objects being in a place, like in this 3D space where you and I live. And Meta's augments are an important step in this direction. And the ability to place digital objects in physical space and have them persist, have them stay there over time, is really powerful. This is coming later this year, I hear from friends at Meta, and I'm really excited about the possibilities for brands, like having branded objects that people can keep in their homes, that stay there, that represent some value or some functionality of the brand. And this ability also makes demonstration and training super powerful. And this app is called JigSpace, and it's great for presentation of 3D models and physical objects. Now, recently, we worked with spatial computing startup Alki Labs to bring this capability to physical retail. And in physical retail, there's so many miscommunications and inefficiencies that arise from workers just not having access to the relevant information in the context where it's needed. So we used mobile augmented reality to put planograms right in front of the shelves they depict so that store associates know exactly how to arrange products when they're restocking them. We also enabled placement of simple notes in physical space to guide workers in everyday tasks. If that's me putting the spicy fried noodles where they go. And of course, precisely located promotions help shoppers find what they're looking for faster. And this increases basket size and improves shopper marketing effectiveness. So brands and retailers are very happy about this. So these are a few examples of digital things being in a place. And then the third thing spatial computing enables is being in a place together. And this is where it gets really interesting. Now, back in 2016, I was leading emerging technology for a global consultancy called ThoughtWorks. And when we discovered what was possible with this new wave of VR headsets that came out that year, we had an idea that maybe we could improve on video calling, which my lead designer thought was just a horrible way to do remote collaboration. And this is an early experiment we did in 3D collaboration in VR, where we learned how incredibly powerful it is to co-create diagrams and other kinds of things in an immersive environment. Also how much fun it can be, right? And it's taken a while, but this use case has really grown in recent years. But as we developed our skills on my team, we started taking on bigger challenges. So we had a bunch of airline clients, and we asked their CEOs, what keeps you up at night? Like, what are your top concerns? And they said, we only make money when planes are in the air. And they're often unexpectedly on the ground. Why? Because problems arise when planes are just on the tarmac that mechanics don't know how to solve right away, because inadequate training, or they've forgotten their training, or they just don't have that information available in the moment. So we started creating these immersive training systems in 2017. And even though there was no case study data at the time, we were convinced that training with fully accurate 3D models of physical objects and environments would be so much more effective than the traditional training approach. And in the years since, using VR for training has become commonplace, right? At the most successful, the largest companies in the world. One current example, this is an app called Campfire running on Meta's Quest 3 headset. It's their latest headset. But I really believe this kind of co-presence, even with simple avatars, but co-presence, that being with the people and the things that we're collaborating on, wherever we are, will turn out to be the killer app for spatial computing. And it builds on this simple, like, blue square prototype that we saw earlier. So this is all stuff that can be done with spatial computing before AI.
At some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
AI. You mean artificial intelligence?
Yes, Neo, that's what we mean. I mean, we have been marveling at our own magnificence, haven't we? And I'd say we've also been feeling like the ground is shifting beneath our feet as humans. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, advancements in AI have been so profound the past couple years that I've often felt like reality itself is shifting. Or at least that we're awakening into a new relationship with reality. One where we realize that reality itself is co-created. And I believe the convergence of spatial computing and AI is a huge unlock for the promise of co-created reality. Now, I realize this may sound like an unbelievable claim. Some of you may not be convinced, because how often do we say, well, the reality is blah, 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 right? The reality is it doesn't work that way, or the reality is that can't be done. Because reality is just this set of things, this constraints over there, separate from us, right? That's how we relate to it. So just like AI, spatial computing has been around for decades. We've seen virtual reality and augmented reality and mixed reality. So what is this reality thing we're talking about? Well, let's explore this for a few minutes. Let's start with a scientific perspective, right? Now, quantum mechanics is the most rigorously tested scientific theory we have. It's been confirmed by countless experiments. We have computer chips and lasers and other technologies that exploit quantum effects. And yet, quantum mechanics contradicts our current common sense view that reality exists separate from us. In his book, Q is for Quantum, physicist Terry Rudolph says that quantum mechanics makes it hard to sustain the naive, realistic belief that the universe has physical properties of some form, independent of my concerns. Kind of a difficult statement. This one is a little bit easier to understand. John Wheeler, another quantum theorist, says that we live in a participatory universe in which our questions and observations define reality and even bring it into existence. So we can say that quantum reality is co-created. And then there's neuroscience, which has been advancing very rapidly in recent decades. And this neuroscientist, Anil Seth, recently gave a TED Talk in which he stated that we're all hallucinating all the time. And when we agree about our hallucinations, we call that reality. And central to his talk is this model of the brain as a prediction engine that actively constructs our perception of the world through a combination of sensory input and past experiences, suggesting that what we perceive is essentially a controlled hallucination. And further, many popular spiritual traditions concur with this view of reality. And Buddhism may be the closest, with its view that all things are interdependently co-arisen, and so they lack inherent existence on their own. It's very similar to the quantum mechanics notion that our observations define reality and bring it into existence. So in this sense, reality is dependent on us. Now, The Matrix is a story built on the premise, right, that what we think is reality is actually a simulation. And in the 25 years, I can't believe it's been 25 years, but 25 years since The Matrix, we've discovered that this film was actually a documentary. Almost. But we have this very diverse, it's small, but very diverse sample set of human explorations, quantum mechanics, neuroscience, and Buddhism. We could talk about the psychedelic experience, other religions and mysticism and things, but all of these areas of human exploration make it very clear that reality is participatory. We'll use the quantum theorist term, right? Participatory. It's not objective. In other words, we who participate in reality are involved in creating it. With me so far? Cool. So what if, as quantum mechanics suggests, reality is a dream? And if we take seriously the quantum mechanics notion that our experience defines reality, then lucid dreaming is more than a curiosity. It's a self-guided reality creation practice. And when I asked ChatGPT about lucid dreaming, it pointed out that its key aspects are the dreamer is aware of the dream, has control. Dreams are very vivid and can be emotionally and physically real. I mean, how many of you have had dreams where you controlled what happened? Yeah, awesome. I often have dreams where I fly. It's actually been a little while, but they're very empowering, very exciting. But what if reality is a dream and dreams can be intentionally controlled? And this is where spatial computing is a big unlock, because augmented reality is a kind of lucid dreaming with technology. And as with lucid dreaming, we can control what we experience. We can conjure it into our reality. Yoko Ono famously said that a dream you dream together is reality. And shared AR, where we experience digital things in our shared physical space, is co-creating reality. And entrepreneurs kind of follow we might call it the Yoko Ono principle, dreaming together with teams of collaborators, co-creating reality. We all do this, right? Like, let's make a social network that we can all use to find friends and keep in touch, right? Or let's make humanity a multiplanetary species, and we'll start with the rockets we need to build to get to other planets. Speaking of rockets, right? In the early 60s, JFK said, we're going to go to the moon, without knowing how or what would be required. And that statement, though, co-created that reality of getting to the moon. So reality is creatable by us as humans. Now, of course, reality is not just humans. And I've been writing and speaking about the ecosystem paradigm the last few years. It's really about seeing the world as made of connected ecosystems, because it's become unavoidably clear that everything is connected. And seeing the world through this lens is a huge unlock for all kinds of problem solving and solution building, largely because it is actually the reality of the world, that everything is connected. And nature is deeply interconnected. And by nature, I mean to include humans as well as all other living things. Talked about fungi and mycelium in the forest floor, how quantum mechanics shows that observer and observed are entangled with each other, deeply interconnected. There's the human microbiome, the mind-body connection, many other examples we could go into. But when we consider technology, it seems to also evolve like natural ecosystems do. In 2010, Kevin Kelly published a book called What Technology Wants, in which he argued that technology drives its own evolution. It has its own purpose and desired outcomes. I don't know about you, but sometimes it feels like Gen AI has taken on a life of its own. Like we can already feel it pulling towards AGI or even superintelligence, creating its own future. It's also clear that humanity and technology are converging. In the 60s, many of you have probably heard this quote many times, but Marshall McLuhan stated that we shape our tools and then our tools shape us. And more than 15 years into the smartphone era, this era of constant social media and digital engagement, it's clear that our tools are shaping us profoundly, right? So human technology and nature technology are increasingly in this ecosystem relationship. The internet and smartphones and AI and spatial computing and all the rest of it are just evolving together. Our paths are intertwined. So reality is ultimately co-created by the ecosystems we participate in, these ecosystems of humans and human technology and nature technology. So let's recap real quick. Reality is not objective, it's participatory, and it's co-created by ecosystems. Still with me? It's okay? Cool. Thumbs up. So now we've all established all this. Well, how do we co-create reality? And what role do spatial computing and AI play? And what does this have to do with the near future of creativity or the ways we do business, right? Well, we've had what is perhaps the most important technology for creation for a very long time. So let's go back to the very beginning. Because in the beginning, God said, "Let there be light," in language, and there was light. So we have this foundational example of language or declaration creating reality. And humanity has many stories of deities declaring the world into existence just by making a statement, right? And there's a long history of spellcasting as well, using natural languages like English or Portuguese, as well as magical languages designed for spellcasting, which is often how I've seen programming as a software developer, programming languages, like magical incantations in language that create realities inside the computer as well as in the real world often. And language models like ChatGPT leverage this enormous power of language to create. I had this moment while creating this image of God, creating the world, that I reflected on my own Christian upbringing and how deep these stories go for me. In my 20s, as a software guy in San Francisco, I encountered Stuart Brand, who was an early internet and tech visionary. And back in 1968, in response to the incredible technologies of that time, he famously stated, "We are as gods, so we may as well get good at it." And then this happened early this year. We've all seen this many times, but OpenAI's Sora really inspired us with this idea that photoreal cinematic quality video can be created from just a text prompt. We kind of take this for granted now, but it kicked off an amazing year of AI-generated video. It hasn't even been a year yet. And more recently, of course, Runway's Gen 3 can create video like this without difficulty, just a text prompt, or even this, again, very simple text prompt. So humans and AI are already co-creating reality. And as the quantum theorist described, we and AI are part of a participatory universe. Participants in an ecosystem that is co-creating reality. Right, now you might think, okay, great, these tools can create text and images and video, and that's amazing, but they're not creating reality. Let's take this further into the realm of spatial computing. Now, spatial computing has existed for decades, and it's essential for robots and autonomous vehicles and drones and many other emerging use cases. But combined with AI, it's about to redefine what is possible for humanity and for brands and business models. So today we can use language to not only create images and video, as we've seen, we can also declare 3D spatial realities into existence. And this is one example. It's a tool from Blockade Labs, and the prompt to me is actually dream up your world. I don't know if you can see it. So I type in, and I'm using my godlike powers here, an Ecolux villa on the Portuguese coast. Another thing I dream about. So then I select realistic and interiors and click generate. And a few seconds later, we get this panorama, which is amazing in itself. And it can also be downloaded as a 3D model into Unreal Engine or Unity. So I can be in this place in VR. Or use it as a starting point for an interior design, whatever I want. And this capability has only been available really for a few months, but already AI-generated video like this one can be transformed into a 3D model. Actually, a Gaussian splat, right? It's one of the most promising approaches to 3D over the past year. Many of you have probably seen it as well. So now that we can use AI to generate 3D spatial models, we're just about at the point where we can jump into a headset and say to the AI, I want to be watching this movie at a mountain lake in a pine forest at night with a sky full of stars, and then be there. So what do you think? Is this creating reality yet? So our near future is all about humans and AI and spatial computing co-creating reality. So why have I spent all this time talking about reality? It's because once we awaken into the reality that we co-create reality, everything becomes possible. It's because if we want a thriving, abundant future, we have to let go of these imaginary constraints that we operate with. It's because brands and business are one of the most powerful forces in the world, and the reality is we can co-create anything we want. So we've talked about how technology drives its own evolution and how reality is co-created by ecosystems of humans and human technology and nature technology. And when we have this mindset, we can unlock many new modes of creativity. So brands and businesses are ecosystems. Many touch points, many participants, many modes of engagement, right? All interconnected. So what if we could build brands and business models incorporating AI and spatial computing so that they naturally evolve in response to shifts in culture and society to create new business realities? Well, here's something that could help, right? Because we're on the cusp of AI having a major shift from prompt to participant. You may have seen this. A couple weeks ago, a ChatGPT user had this experience of ChatGPT started the conversation, right? It said, how was your first week at high school? Did you message me first? Yes, I did. I was just checking in. So OpenAI said this is a bug, right? That ChatGPT just out of the blue started the conversation. But I think that was really just PR spin because in their labs, models are already doing this. Meta recently announced that their AI will start generating content and putting it in your feed on Instagram and Facebook. It's not from people you follow. It's solely based on your interests and identity. It really shifts the meaning of a social network when some of the users are AI, right? Although a new app called social.ai offers a social network where everyone else is an AI. You get to choose your followers, what they're like, only have to interact with other AIs, other bots, right? So maybe once you start getting synthetic content in your feed, you decide you prefer that, right? I don't know, but this brings us to orchestrating reality. So like the conductor of an orchestra produces a symphony with many musicians, our role is shifting from control to coordination. So some of the musicians in this orchestra we conduct are now AIs. And we've all seen the ways brands like Coca-Cola have orchestrated a collaboration of consumers and AIs to create on-brand content, right? And we've seen how Snickers has enticed people to type silly, incorrect prompts, making fun of prompt mistakes is something you do when you're hungry that leads to funny imagery, right? A man eating Snickers on the street. It's funny, but some of these AIs will take action without us asking for it, like Meta's Imagined for You. This is something else they also announced, putting content in your feed. I don't know if we want this, if we like it, but it's coming. But orchestrating reality opens up many new possibilities. We can think bigger and much more broadly. We're not limited to creating and distributing brand content. We can influence how people and AI collaborate to create new content. So Dove has a 20-year commitment to depicting real women of all kinds. And this year, they promised to never use generative AI images of women, only to continue to display real women in their promotional materials. But of course, they know people are using AIs to generate images of women, so they launched this prompt playbook to guide people about how to do this in a way that represents women's diversity. And this playbook is very extensive. It's around 70 pages. It really educates people about the inherent bias in AI and how AI works. And it provides a lot of detailed examples of how to prompt AI models to generate diverse and truly representative images of women. And this really goes far beyond what we think of as creative work for brands, right? It reaches into how people interact with AI outside of the campaign. And it points to the need to evolve the AI models themselves, really, because of the bias. So here's a very different example. Small businesses, of course, cannot afford Shah Rukh Khan, probably the most famous movie star in the world. So Cadbury provided them access to his avatar so they could generate ads for their shops.
Used machine learning to recreate Shah Rukh Khan's face and voice to take the local store names in the ads.
आप भी ना अपने पास वाली चॉइस ऑफ फैशन से ही कपड़ों की शॉपिंग करो, रॉयल फैशन से ही, MK क्लॉथ्स से ही.
You get the idea, right? So each ad featured the specific store name and location, was targeted to viewers that live near the store, for maximum relevance. And since avatars have become so easy to make, we can have fun with them too, right? Using celebrity avatars to deliver personalized messages.
Hi, it's me, Jennifer Lopez, Chief Celebration Officer of Virgin Voyages, here to invite you to celebrate. So come.
Celebrate your anniversary, your birthday, or just generally being fabulous.
Really, Kyle?
Fun, right? But as we've said, reality is very physical as well, which is why we're seeing many more wearable cameras this year. And this is clearly Meta's vision of the future. And wearing a camera can obviously be super fun and also very useful when the AI can see what you see, right? It can tell you what you're looking at or describe a building or a monument or how to make a recipe from ingredients you're looking at. It's important to note, though, that if the AI can see whatever you see, that companies like Meta really need to do more to prevent people wearing these glasses from identifying and manipulating anybody they encounter in public. Right, this experiment called iX-ray was done by a couple college students. It went viral recently. It was just a few weeks ago, and if you haven't heard about it, I recommend checking it out. Just Google iX-ray. Meta also introduced a prototype of full AR glasses called Orion. It probably won't be available for a few years, but this is the most impressive demo of augmented reality glasses we've ever seen. And again, it provides the ability to lay digital information about what you're looking at. The AI identifies it on top of what you're looking at so you can see how you might be able to use it, right? And Snap's 5th generation spectacles were released also recently, so the market is just heating up. And Apple will, of course, release something like this as soon as they can get the price into a reasonable place. So after many years of anticipation, this digital-physical convergence is finally really emerging. So what's possible when you have AI participating at every point in these ecosystems? Well, we've all seen this exponentially increased or accelerated ideation and content creation, right? For brainstorming or just going from a brief to a set of ideas can really happen in hours instead of weeks like it used to. We can also delegate responsibility for creative tasks to AI so that we can have much more highly populated creative teams. And this really requires workflow automation now using tools like Zapier, but we're going to have proper AI agents within the coming 6 to 12 months for sure. And real-time personalization is going to be possible with AI at the edge, meaning that campaign elements can be personalized to an audience of one even in real time in response to their usage. And finally, campaigns will be able to evolve in real time in response to culture shifts and how they're used. These are just a few examples of what's coming. So with AI as a participant in this co-creation of brand realities, our role is shifting from creative direction to orchestrator of participatory reality. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting this is a job title, right? But just feel the energy of this. This is an exciting role. It's a much bigger role, a participatory role. It's about us not just making something and putting it into the world. It's like we get to participate in it ongoingly. So with this kind of technology, we can extend this approach of orchestrating reality into all kinds of ecosystems. Digital, physical, natural, because creativity is really as broad as all of our experience. So I have two client examples to share really quickly. The first is for Planet Fitness. So every brand offers something, right? Some kind of product or service. And our client, Planet Fitness, is a big US fitness chain, and it offered huge gyms with lots of equipment for people to work out in. But more and more, people were working out at home, not going to the gym. And the pandemic, of course, made that really complete. And so we came to them and said, what if you think of the gym of the future just being everywhere? And so we showed them how all the different points of engagement in a customer's day, from wearable technology and connected fitness equipment at home and voice interactions, in the kitchen and on a digital scale, all could be brought together to help them help their customers on their fitness and health journeys, including on the go, like prompting people to walk or bicycle instead of driving a car whenever they could. And then all of this could be brought to bear in the gym to support better, more effective usage of their equipment and in training sessions in the gym. So Planet Fitness evolved from a gym to a health and fitness ecosystem. Here's a very different client. GATX is a 125-year-old company that leases rail cars to companies that do agriculture or mining or drilling, and they have huge amounts of raw material that just need to be transported from one place to another, and this is the most cost-effective way. So they told us we need to innovate, but we don't know how. And so after 3 weeks of diving deep into their brand and business model and understanding the practicalities of it, and then spending a lot of time with AI and spatial computing and sensors and new platform approaches, all kinds of new possibilities, we came up with a presentation to their CEO to describe the near future of their business. And this is a very, very abbreviated excerpt. So just as electricity became a service and compute became a service, mobility and transport were becoming a service. And this technology, thanks to sensors in rail cars and many other places, was coming online to transition rail cars into a connected service ecosystem, incorporating AI, spatial computing, all kinds of other technology. And so we envisioned the business as evolving over time with several parallel tracks, from today to the near future, maybe 2 to 3 years out, to further out. And each one of these line items is a participant in this ecosystem. So there's interaction technology, taking digital from separate from physical all the way to integrated, merging with physical, AI machine learning from assistant to decision maker to strategist. This is really over the past 5 years, this has come to fruition. And then the platform going from the customer having to know everything, be the subject matter expert, to the platform itself being the subject matter expert. So the takeaway is really transforming a very old business model into this automatically evolving ecosystem using AI and spatial computing. So again, our focus is on connecting the possible and the practical, merging foresight with action. And our belief is these elements need to be overlapped in order to be effective. And this is, I'm not going to go into detail here, but it's an example or it's a diagram of what the near future framework approach is, really taking all the examples of possibilities that are driven by technology, the practical aspects of the business. We take all of this and train an AI model that supports us in developing hypotheses that we can then prioritize, identify to pilot, and then iterate the most promising ones all the way to market. So at my company, we're using these models to actually support this brainstorming and ideation and prototyping practice as well. So to wrap things up, what could the further future look like? Well, the reality I'm co-creating is a beautiful convergence of human technology and nature technology, with humanity making real progress towards a symbiosis of these realms. Because aligning what humans want, what technology wants, and what the living ecosystems of this planet want is clearly essential for a thriving, abundant future. And with the convergence of spatial computing and AI, we're at a turning point in history. This point where quantum reality becomes our reality. And together, these technologies give our businesses the power to envision and prototype and test and deliver new products and spaces and brands and services at exponential speed, and the opportunity to transform the ecosystems that they participate in. So my prompt to you is, what will you do with this power? And what will we co-create with it together? I'll leave you with that. Muito obrigado. See you in the near future. Thank you.